So we've got a few questions we'd like to ask you, if that's all right. So part of your cybersecurity strategy is to develop cybersecurity industry in Michigan. What kind of steps are we taking along those lines, and what's our competitive advantage with other regions?
Sure, I think we have, first of all, a lot of advantages, and then I think we're actually doing a great job of working together. In terms of advantages, we're sitting on one of the greatest advantages in the world, the University of Michigan. And for a guy that had to wear a green tie yesterday, I'm recovering, so I'm glad we got it. To put in context, though, we have some other wonderful universities that are doing great work, and the reason I say that is one of the greatest assets is the merit network. And that's something we should be so proud of that was built here and exists here. Beyond that, though, we're doing a good job of rallying people together, bringing things together in terms of the state partnering with these wonderful institutions with the private sector. The biggest issue I have with the federal government quite often is they've spent most of their time, in my perception, hardening themselves. And they do need to do that, but I think they've overlooked the fact that the greatest risks and threats to cybersecurity are not within the federal government, it's within all these industry sectors and the rest of our lives. And so in Michigan, my view at the state level is we've tried to embrace a broader network. Let's make it a bigger tent and bring everyone together, and we're doing that. And a couple of unique things. The civilian cyber corps is a unique asset in the country that we're starting in. We should be proud. Don, you've been a big help in that. The cyber range, again, you know all about it, but the cyber range is a unique asset that we have working with the Merit Network, the universities, the Michigan National Guard, where we actually have Alphaville, where we can do blue-red competitions, find the flag, all these exercises, and it's being 20 sometimes a year or more. It's being utilized as a great asset and resource to people, to train people to be better with cybersecurity. So, in many respects, I'm proud of that, and let's keep it going. And the other one is this thought leadership. So you're having this conference, we're doing a cyber event, Sunday and Monday this next week. Let's be louder and prouder about how we're a leader. We have to recognize that may make us a bigger target, but isn't it more important that we try to help all our citizens?
Thank you. Richard Clark said that a digital Pearl Harbor is unlikely, but that the U.S. is suffering a death by 1,000 cuts through the loss of intellectual property. How does this impact companies in Michigan and our competitiveness?
It does. It's one of those great challenges that every time we lose intellectual property in particular, it's a loss of a competitive opportunity. And it could lead to job loss. So we do need to be sensitive to that. But in some contexts, I don't overlook the digital Pearl Harbor. I don't think people should dismiss that. I really am concerned that there could be a catastrophic attack in some fashion. And to be open with you, I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of the ways we would be attacked have already been planned. And so we do cyber exercises at the state of Michigan, again, with the cyber range and all these other great partners with us, and we do them well. But I have not seen a simulated attack yet that truly reflects what, if we sat down, we could design and the amount of havoc it could reach. So we need to be even more honest with ourselves. And we need to do a better job of that. And so I'm not trying to scare people, but I do want you to have, if you're not scared to some degree, I don't think you really understand the threat we face. So that's something I want to continue working on, and I'm going to push people to actually, let's keep working on IP, let's work confidentiality, integrity, availability issues, but let's not overlook the fact that there could be much more catastrophic consequences.
So the Internet of Things is coming, and Gartner thinks that by 2020 there'll be about 25 billion devices on the network. And that includes things like refrigerators and so forth, but also cars, aircraft, and so forth. So how can Michigan help make this a safer world for us as we come into this Internet of Things?
Well, the great part is Michigan's the best place for making things in the world. Made in Michigan is something special. We're still an industrial powerhouse that very few places in the world can match. And when I say that, it's not just the physical manufacturing. The industrial design, Michigan has, I think, more industrial designers than virtually any other place in the country, and we're getting those people together. So part of this is designing in better thoughtfulness and intelligence on cyber issues. I know we got a lot of people here that do your homework and research. You know the best way that someone might hack into someone's homes nowadays could be through their refrigerator or through their thermostat, depending on how they were set up. I mean, companies have been hacked most successfully through their pop machines. So this is where, as we expand this broad reach, we need to be more thoughtful that all these devices create a cybersecurity threat. The classic you've seen on the news about hacking cars, about someone taking control of a vehicle. That one actually amazed me because I view that as something common sense that, to be blunt, the auto industry should have been further ahead on a while ago. And we need to be proactive on that, especially as we do wonderful things. This is, again, we're doing M-City, we're doing intelligent vehicles. We're the leader in the world in helping do that. We're in competition with a couple other places, but we're helping lead the world in intelligent vehicles. Let's help lead the world in intelligent vehicle cybersecurity.
Thank you. So recently there's been a lot of news stories about cyber espionage from foreign governments. And President Obama and President Xi signed an agreement last week to stop cyber espionage between the countries. In your opinion, how will this, or will it have much effect on what's going on in terms of loss of intellectual property and the amount of cyber espionage that's going on with foreign governments?
Well, I don't think we should underestimate that. I think it's good an agreement was done. I think that is a very constructive step. But that's just a starting point. I think we need to work under an assumption that that's happening, and again, without identifying any single country, but there are multiple countries out there or groups within countries that are undertaking either terrorist activities or essentially offensive activities in some fashion on the cyber front. So we need to assume that. We need to be diligent and work hard to deal with that. One illustration, because you mentioned China in particular, I make regular trips to China, and I want to do more business with China. I have great relationships with a lot of Chinese government officials and business people, and in a very positive way. But it was interesting. I was talking to one Chinese company recently that is in a world where intellectual property is absolutely critical. So one of the questions I ask in particular is, well, how do you feel about protection of your intellectual property here? And so what you find is the Chinese economy, as it evolves, you're going to find a lot of Chinese companies becoming critically concerned with intellectual property. And I think that's one of the things that will help transition the commercial world, but we still have this national issue we need to deal with.
Thank you. Scott McNeely made a statement about being zero consumer privacy available now. How applicable is that to government and education in terms of the fact that Google collects so much information, and Apple and whoever? What should government be collecting? What should public institutions like universities? And what's your opinion on the right balance there?
Yeah, we do need to strike a balance because, again, I mentioned confidentiality. That is an important issue, and we need to acknowledge that. I'll talk quickly a little bit about what we're doing in Michigan, because I have a vision for the IT future of the state of Michigan government. And I call it my page, MI page. You can see I try to use the my whenever I can. Is if you think about today, when you interface with the state of Michigan, we have 20 departments, a bunch of agencies. Literally, depending on your life, you could be in 20 to 30 or 40 different databases. Because, again, you file your tax return with Treasury, you have all these different activities, it's all over the place. So it's a hassle for you in your life. And so the vision I'm driving them towards is to say, instead of having 20 databases that have you in multiple times, we have 10 million citizens and a number of organizations in our state. Why don't we go the other way and go customer-centric and say we have 10 million customer records? And that at some point in life, you should be able to self-manage your own file. And again, we put restrictions on confidentiality within state government, so someone in the state can't see everything. But wouldn't it be cool if you could just go change your address once? So my vision is to move to my page to make you the center of the database and make us adjust to that. I think that's the way we should be heading in terms of much better responsiveness to you. And my goal longer term is to say, why don't we do that with the public sector? So again, if you're in Ann Arbor versus the state of Michigan versus the federal government, this is all stuff that's a nuisance in your life. How do we make that go away and give you better customer service because we work for you?
Thank you, sir. So given that you've accomplished an awful lot that was in your original Michigan Cyber Initiative, in your second term now, what are the priorities that are remaining that you want to accomplish?
Well, continuing this path, because I don't think this will ever stop, and it shouldn't. This is continuous improvement. Again, you set the framework and then you just get better and better, because every time you put in an improvement in to do better cybersecurity, there's someone out there figuring out how to beat that. So you can never take it for granted. The other part is, I want us to be a bigger thought leader and embrace more organizations, private sector organizations, other public sector members, on how we can do this and be that clearinghouse coordinating member. And again, as I said, the area I think we're least prepared for is restoration or response in some ways. And there's a lot more work that needs to be done there. And I am very concerned that a lot of people simply aren't even doing passwords. So there's a huge amount of work to be done. And I'm fired up to keep working this.
Great. Thanks, sir. So we know there's this very large threat out there, and of course we have a lot of resources here at the university, and in terms of, course, all the brain power and the things that we do for a very large enterprise. So what are the things, other than the faculty research that are part of inherently what we do, should we be doing to help with this here at the University of Michigan to help with this problem?
Well, there's a lot, because again, the University of Michigan is clearly one of the world's thought leaders. But then you say, to the degree there are literally tens of thousands of students here, do we actually believe our students are fully aware and understand cyber threats and cybersecurity? My answer to that would be no. Just by the law of numbers. How can we make sure that as these young people get a fabulous education, that they're prepared to go out in the world and be advocates, be those evangelists for cybersecurity? And how do we really make that transition? Also, how do we really get out to the general public? Because again, the university has a broader role in terms of helping the public good. And then the other part is, I'll come back to the civilian cyber core thing a little bit. This is where we need to work together, because you mentioned in your writing, we got some of the best, brightest minds in the world here. That's not the same thing to say the alarm goes off, there's a massive cyber assault, the grid goes down, hospital records go down, and how do you respond within a matter of hours to get people in place to help solve that problem? You can have the most brilliant minds in the world, but if they've not met one another, they've not talked, they don't know what each one's roles and responsibilities is in a very concise fashion. I mean, not to pick on the university, but usually what you find if you said you want to do this is like, let's form a committee and let's talk about it for 2 years, right? And to be open with you, my point is, I'm not trying to sound alarmist, my point is why shouldn't we have that committee meeting now and address all those roles and responsibility, even though we may never have to actually do that work, but get it so everyone knows what their place is and role is if that alarm goes off. That's why I'd ask the university to work on it too.
Thank you. Social media is a very interesting thing that is developed, and there's a lot of great things that come out of it, some not so great things. But certainly one of the things that has been used more to coordinate attacks. Is the state of Michigan doing anything to try and help monitor and be aware of potential attacks by looking at social media?
Yeah, and I want to be careful. This is not I don't want people to believe, the black helicopters are coming in and all this kind of stuff. This is for publicly available information. It's all out there on the web. We do spend some time and resource looking through that, and we're doing that through the normal course of things with the state police, among others. And I think that's important because it's not just cyber threats. If you look at child pornography, human trafficking, drugs, other violent acts, looking for people that are potentially in a position to do the school shootings. There are a lot of scary things out there. And again, not to scare people, but I think it's important that we're not just reacting, but people are doing it in a thoughtful, again, following all the civil liberty rules out there, but to say that we're at least aware of what's sort of going on in the world out there, and that if we find something pops up on the screen, that there's set protocols and procedures to follow up on that. And we have found that to actually help protect the public. And I think that is a reasonable.
So you personally have been a leader amongst other governors in calling their attention to this issue, and I know when you first were elected and started to get involved, a lot of governors had not even thought about it. What kind of progress have other states made?
We are making some progress in a number of places, but there's a lot more to be done. There's still, to be blunt, there are senior government officials, whether they're state or national, that are still ignoring this issue too much, in my view. And it's much like the adoption curve of technology. You have early adopters, you have fast followers, you have most people in the middle, and you have the laggards. It's as true in cybersecurity as anything else with technology adoption. And so, one thing I've set aside, because again, I spend most of my time on Michigan issues, but on the national stage with the National Governors Association and other groups, is cyber something that I have become active in, and to be open, we've created situations to hopefully get the attention of enough other governors that they're doing things, and some have done a great job of responding. Others probably need a little more motivation.
Yeah.
But that's relentless positive action. That's a little more relentless there. I'm going to stay on top of that.
Okay, sir. We've got just a couple minutes left. Is there any parting comments that you'd like to make to our audience?
Well, this is great. Again, as I mentioned, I think it's wonderful you're here. This is a topic that you can stay in your own little silo very easily, whether it be a company, whether it be a department, whether it can be the university, whether it's a state government. If you're in the cyber field, or you're doing cybersecurity, I bet you're already somewhat overworked already, to be blunt, because the demands are so much. But the only way we're really going to be prepared is by talking to one another and creating venues and forums to have that dialogue. And so what I encourage you to do is, this is a great event. I hope you do this on a regular basis. But I'd also, again, encourage you to come do homework on joining a cyber range event, participating in one of those exercises, encouraging people to look at potentially getting involved with the Civilian Cyber Corps, talking to your friends and neighbors. It's amazing. I still have a discussion in my family every so often, probably more with my wife than the kids, about passwords and things like that. It all makes a difference. And just think about the difference you can make in someone's life, even if it is helping one single individual understand it's time to change your password and it's time to use something other than your birthday for your password. These all make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. So when I first started working with you and your team back in 2010, I felt very fortunate to have a governor who understood cybersecurity issues better than any other non-technical leader that I'd ever worked with. And I feel very fortunate again that you take your time to come and talk with us, to emphasize how important this is and give us your insights. So thank you so much for coming, sir. Really appreciate it.